It's no secret there are a lot of chores to be done during the peak of the growing season, so anything that we can do to cut down on that is a welcomed opportunity. So in this video, I have 5 hacks for you to make your time in the garden a lot more productive and a little less labor intensive. The first gardening hack I want to share with you involves sowing seeds, and it doesn't matter whether it's an edible or a perennial like these right here. I sow a lot of seeds, but I sow them densely, and that's the hack I want to share. If you put a lot of seeds of one type of plant into a pot, grow them out. At some point in the future, when you're ready to transplant them into the garden, you've got one single pot. You can easily break apart the root ball, and then you have individual plants to put wherever you want, but you eliminate the need to have all these different pots, one for each plant. Not necessary. Densely plant them like this right here, or you can do it with your tomatoes or whatever, and you're going to save yourself a lot of room in the early stages and make it easier when it's time to transplant. The next tip I want to share with you relates to protecting your garden soil. Now what you see right here is livestock panel cut to pieces that I've laid on top of the raised bed, and that's there to prevent furrowing critters or squirrels or chickens or cats or whatever that may want to get in here and disrupt the soil. That's particularly of concern in between the seasons when nothing's planted here, or maybe you've just sown seeds. The last thing you want to have happen is something to come in here and dig it up. So there's 2 options for that. The first is livestock panel cut to size and placed into your bed or on top of it, and that works great, but the squares are pretty large, and so that doesn't necessarily prevent some of those critters from doing what they want to do. So here's the option I want to share with you, and it is this material right here. Now, you might recognize this as snow fencing, especially when it's the bright fluorescent orange in the wintertime that lines the roadways. But this is the same stuff, it's just green, thank goodness. But you can get this online by the roll, and what I love about this is the size of the holes. It's much smaller. It comes in a roll that you can buy online, and you can cut it to size as I've done for these beds. But then I just, as you're seeing, just quickly lay it out onto the bed. Normally I don't have the livestock panel underneath it, but in the interest of time, this works too. And I just lay it out. And it's that simple. It unfolds right to whatever size you cut it. And then the way you keep it in place are with these pins that oftentimes you use to hold down floating row cover or fleece in the wintertime, but you could use coat hangers as well and just cut them like this in a U shape, and then just periodically place them in your beds and hold them down, and that's all you need to do. It works great. This isn't going to move, but the beauty of this is it's really tough, it's reusable, it's easy to store, and while it's in place, there isn't anything that's going to get in there because there's just no room for them to do what they need to do. This works fantastic. It'll last a long time, and it is well worth the small investment up front. Recognize this, it's called a sucker, and it's easy to recognize on a tomato plant because it's always at a 45-degree angle between the branch and the main stem. Now, if you leave this in place, it will fruit and make more tomatoes, but this is a great insurance policy if you want to make more plants. Genetic copies, cloning them basically, is you can cut this out or snap it off and pot it up, and in a matter of weeks, you've got a rooted cutting that's going to grow into a full-size plant. So this is why you do it, and it's easy to remove it from the plant, but just to be safe, you can make the cut and then you don't have to worry about tearing anything. You want to do this ideally early in the morning when you've got maximum hydration in the plant, but have your pot ready, get some good soil in there, stick it in and keep this very moist, and then I like to keep it in the shade for about 10 days to 2 weeks to keep the stress off of it and allow it time to form those roots, and then you can start easing it back into full sun over the next few days to acclimate it. Harden it off is the term, and then you'll have a duplicate backup copy, an insurance policy, or just plan it out for a brand new plant of the same exact variety. During tomato season, we want all the tomatoes we can get, and you can't get a tomato without the flower. Fortunately though, for tomatoes, they are what are called perfect flowers, so they have the male and female parts within a single flower, so they don't need pollinators to help them produce the fruit. But sometimes when it gets too hot or too humid, that pollen doesn't transfer properly, so sometimes we can come in there and assist with that. And one thing I like to do is tap on the flower and try to release some of the pollen. Now, I don't usually just put my spoon under there, but I'm just doing it in case I could see some pollen come out. I don't, but there's another device that you can use to really make a difference and pretty much ensure if there's pollen in there that's going to release, this is going to do it. And this device is called a veggie bee. It's basically a little motor that vibrates the flower and it releases the pollen. You could use an electric toothbrush for that. But let's go ahead and just see if it makes a difference. It should. Oh yeah. Definitely coming out now. So this is probably about a $35 to $40 investment, but your electric toothbrush can do the same thing for maybe, what is that, $5? But if you provide some way to help release that pollen, that can fertilize the flower, and then you can end up with more tomatoes in the process. And on the subject of maximizing our tomato production is hack number 5. And that is picking the tomato before it is fully ripe on the vine. I talk about this a lot. The term is called the breaker stage, but you want to take the tomato before it is fully colored up. So this is a variety called Black Krim. And when it is fully ripe, this is going to be a much darker red with some dark green shoulders. So this is getting there, but it's not there yet. This is probably 35% of full color. But at this stage, I can pick it, and that's what I'm going to do, knowing that everything this tomato needs is within the fruit itself. So full size, full color, and full flavor will happen within 24 to 48 hours, safely inside, and that's the point. I'm not risking leaving it on, hoping for it to be the perfectly ripe tomato and exposing it to more critters and pests and foraging whatever, squirrels, raccoons, birds, you name it. There's a lot at stake on those last few days, and if I can remove the tomato and get it safely inside on the counter, no other necessary steps, this is going to be identical to if I had left it on the vine and it ripened perfectly here, but I can do that inside about 48 hours ahead of that and avoid all the risk and especially the heartbreak.